with Colbert's audience?
No.
CNN is a joke to people in the audience. Watch this.
He knew his attack lines on President Biden, and he's not really sure how to go after Vice President Harris, 20 years younger than him, who is a different gender, a different race.
I know you guys are objective over there, that you just report the news as it is.
That's supposed to be a laugh line?
I wasn't supposed to be, but I guess it is.
The audience is like,
picture this, Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly coming for your neck in the same week. That's not just a PR nightmare, that's a full-blown career smackdown. And Stephen Colbert, he walked straight into it like it was a scheduled taping. He thought he was still hosting a comedy show, but this week he was the joke. Rogan lit the fuse, Kelly threw gas on it, and now Colbert's identity crisis is blazing across the internet like a wildfire in a dry forest. This isn't a minor Twitter spat, it's a cultural pylon, with Rogan's podcast bros and Kelly's sharp-tongued followers tag-teaming to expose Colbert as the emperor with no comedic clothes.
Stephen Colbert last night was next level. He's so gross. So gross. I remember the Stephen Colbert who tried to just make us laugh, who is like kind of fun, and who, while we always knew he was leftist, didn't realize he hated.
The man who once ruled late-night satire is now dodging haymakers from two media titans who've built their brands on calling out exactly the kind of sanctimonious posturing Colbert's show has become. X is buzzing with clips, memes, and hot takes from Mazemore. His viral thread on Colbert's cringe vaccine skit to Asha Kapahona is quipped that he's less comedian, more DNC mascot. This week, Colbert's not just trending, he's the main character in a roast he didn't sign up for, and the audience isn't laughing with him. So what did Colbert do to ignite this inferno? It's not one soundbite, but a slow-burning fuse of resentment over his transformation from sharp-witted satirist to late-night lapdog. The text you provided points to a pattern. His monologues, once clever and biting, now feel like recycled talking points from a White House presser. Rogan and Kelly, along with a chorus of ex-users, are fed up with his shift from equal opportunity jester to partisan preacher. A specific flashpoint might be a recent episode where his audience booed a CNN guest's claim of objectivity, more on that later, but the real fuel is years of moments like his 2021 vaccine dance or his fumble with Jon Stewart's lab leak bit. Ex-posts from users like Scott Bertram highlight how Colbert's smugness has alienated viewers who once loved his Colbert Report edge. Social media's melting because this isn't just about one bad joke, it's about a comedian who traded his mic for a megaphone and expected no one to notice. Rewind to the early 2000s when Stephen Colbert was a comedic assassin. His Colbert Report character, a bumbling Bill O'Reilly-esque conservative, was a masterclass in satire, skewering political hypocrisy with a wink and a grin. He wasn't just funny, he was dangerous, making power squirm. But somewhere between Comedy Central and CBS, he shed that persona like a snake losing its skin, only to emerge as the very blowhard he once mocked.
all right, well, Colbert was never really a stand-up, so, I mean, I guess he has that.
No, but I mean...
But he was a comic when the Colbert Report was on. I mean, that was hilarious.
It was really good.
He was great.
Yeah.
He was great. And that show was a great takeoff of a pompous, ridiculous Republican.
Exactly.
I mean, it was really good. And then when you see this, you're like, wait a minute. What are you doing?
The text nails it. He's gone from parodying useful idiots to playing one for the left, delivering punchlines that feel like campaign slogans. Ex-users like AFDF fan lament this shift, calling him a sellout who swapped wit for worship. His trajectory isn't evolution, it's a betrayal, a plot twist where the rebel becomes the regime's hype man, complete with a studio band and a smirk that screams, "I'm in on the joke and you're not." Tune in to The Late Show today, and you're not watching comedy, you're attending a support group for the morally self-satisfied. Colbert's audience doesn't laugh at jokes, they clap for their own egos, mirrored back in his sanctimonious monologues. As one ex-user, liberal laugh, snarked, "It's less a show, more a therapy session for people who think they're smarter than their cousins in Ohio." The text compares it to a mirror, not a stage, reflecting the audience's biases rather than challenging them. Gone are the days of savage roasts. Now it's a cozy echo chamber where every line lands like a warm hug for the progressive elite. Ratings reflect the shift. Nielsen data shows The Late Show trailing competitors like Jimmy Fallon in key demographics, with ex-posts noting his viewership's decline as proof his shtick's wearing thin. If smugness were a cologne, Colbert would be bathing in it. Every monologue drips with a self-righteous air, like he's delivering scripture from a mountaintop made of artisanal coffee grounds. The text paints him sipping Chardonnay while spitting White House soundbites, and it's spot on. His delivery screams, "I'm enlightened and you should be too." Ex-users like Mazemore mock his cringy LinkedIn post vibe where every joke feels like a TED Talk slide. Drop him in a humility tank and he'd still crawl out smirking, convinced the water gave him a standing ovation. This isn't comedy, it's performative superiority, a masterclass in alienating anyone who doesn't nod along to his pre-approved script. The smugness isn't just thick, it's suffocating, and it's driving the internet's roast machine into overdrive.
So smart. He said Colbert came up and made his name playing a loving portrayal of a sort of useful idiot, a sort of dum-dum on the right who meant well but was, a real idiot. And now he's playing a useful idiot in a very loving portrayal of the left, a real dum-dum who means well but doesn't know anything, only he doesn't realize it.
A recent episode lit the match for this week's firestorm. As the text recounts, a CNN guest claimed journalistic objectivity, and Colbert's audience, trained to clap like wind-up toys, booed like they'd been personally insulted. Colbert, caught off guard, fumbled, saying, "Is that supposed to be a laugh line? I guess it is." X exploded with users like Shakapahona calling it the moment the mask slipped. The audience's reaction exposed the show's bubble, a room full of loyalists who'd rather hiss at nuance than engage with it. This wasn't just a bad night, it was a microcosm of Colbert's new normal, where dissent is the enemy and the crowd's there to enforce the narrative, not laugh at it. The clip's still circulating on X, fueling the Colbert's a joke meme fest. Enter Joe Rogan, the podcasting caveman who somehow looks like Socrates next to Colbert. Broadcasting from a studio so dark it could host a seance, Rogan's built a following of 15 million on Spotify by asking questions, real ones, not scripted softballs. The text calls him a voice of reason, and while he's no saint, ex-users still roast his mushroom tangents. His curiosity-driven chaos contrasts sharply with Colbert's polished dogma. In 2022, Rogan tore into Colbert's vaccine dance skit on his podcast with Jake Shields, calling it mass psychosis and cringe. X posts from Mazemore. Keep that clip alive, framing Rogan as the guy who'd rather grill a scientist than choreograph a syringe ballet. When did the elk-eating bro become the adult in the room? When Colbert traded wit for worship, Megyn Kelly, meanwhile, is slicing through Colbert's facade like a surgeon with a vendetta. Unshackled from network constraints, she's called his show Democrat Karaoke, a line from the text that's echoed across X. On her podcast with Link Lauren, she accused Colbert of abandoning satire for sycophancy, delivering punchlines so safe they could be sold on Etsy. Her critique stings because she's fearless, willing to offend MAGA loyalists and progressive mobs alike. Ex-users like Scott Bertram amplify her point, noting that Colbert's interviews lack the rigor of a White House press briefing, let alone real journalism. Kelly's not just throwing shade, she's holding a blowtorch, and Colbert's the wax figure melting under it. Let's revisit 2021 when Colbert decided satire meant turning vaccine promotion into a Broadway musical. Dancers dressed as syringes twirled across his stage, a spectacle so bizarre it felt like a fever dream cooked up after binge-watching Rent on psychedelics. Rogan on his podcast called it cringe and propaganda, a sentiment echoed by ex-users who still share the clip as evidence of Colbert's fall. The text nails it. This wasn't comedy, it was a glitter-soaked PSA for trust the science. While Rogan was grilling doctors on mRNA data, Colbert was jazz-handing his way into the establishment's good graces. The internet hasn't forgotten. Vaccine dance is still a punchline on X, and not the kind Colbert intended. Another defining moment came in 2021 when Jon Stewart, Colbert's old Comedy Central buddy, appeared on The Late Show and floated the COVID lab leak theory. The text describes Colbert's panic. He interrupted, stumbled, and tried to shut down the bit, visibly terrified of straying from the approved narrative. Ex-users like FGEF Fan call it a betrayal of his satirical roots, with clips showing him hamstringing Stewart's comedy to avoid ruffling feathers. Stewart, a master of biting humor, was mid-bit, but Colbert's reaction screamed, "Not on my watch!" This wasn't just a fumble, it was a neon sign that Colbert's more loyal to the script than the truth, and the internet's been roasting him for it ever since. Rogan's podcast is a chaotic barbershop where ideas, good, bad, and batshit duke it out. He'll debate a Nobel laureate, then pivot to a UFC fighter or a conspiracy theorist, all in a 3-hour marathon with no safety net. The text calls it a barbershop of ideas, and ex-users agree, with a liberal laugh praising his range despite his quirks. Compare that to Colbert, whose idea of a hard-hitting interview is asking Dr. Fauci his favorite color to thunderous applause. Rogan's not afraid to be wrong. He's chasing truth. truth, even if it's messy. Colbert's chasing claps, serving up predictable talking points like a barista pouring soy lattes for the choir. Guess who's got more X-followers buzzing? Megyn Kelly's jabs at Colbert are surgical, and she's not pulling punches. The text quotes are calling his show a human form of Twitter, all virtue signals and no substance. On her podcast, she's compared his interviews to White House briefings. Zero critical thinking, just applause bait. Kelly's fearless. She'll offend both sides and walk away sharper than before. Ex-users like Oshaka Pahona echo her, saying Colbert's punchlines are bubble wrap to avoid challenging his audience's biases. Her 2018 Rogan interview, where she dissected her own controversies, showed more guts than Colbert's entire last season. When she calls him out, it lands because she's not afraid to bleed for it. Colbert's audience is less a crowd, more a Pavlovian experiment. Say anything, read a cereal box, mispronounce quinoa, and they'll erupt like he just solved world peace. The text calls them wind-up toys, and ex-users like Mazemore agree, mocking their trained applause as robotic. It's not comedy, it's a clapping cue on steroids. His boldest move is roasting someone the audience already hates: Trump, Republicans, the unvaccinated, like picking a fight at a vegan yoga retreat. There's no risk, just smug affirmation. X-clips show him pausing for applause like a politician at a rally, and it's clear, this isn't a show, it's a cult of claps. Satirists are supposed to be flamethrowers, torching hypocrisy on all sides. Colbert's comedy, though, comes with a hall pass. The text says anything aimed at the left gets body-checked at the gate, and ex-users like Oscott Bertram nod, calling his show TSA approved. He doesn't roast politicians, he files polite complaints about them, like an HR rep scolding a coworker for stealing pens. His takedowns of Trump are so safe, they could be printed on a Starbucks cup. Meanwhile, Rogan's inviting Bernie Sanders and Ben Shapiro to the same table, risking real debate. Colbert's satire is less dangerous than a kitten with a Nerf gun. Colbert's chumminess with the elite is a masterclass in tone deafness. The text recounts his favorite billionaire bit, joking about Oprah like he's at a Davos after-party. Ex-users pounced, with IFGF fan calling it proof he's drunk the Kool-Aid. Kelly's ripped him for hobnobbing with the Jennifer Anistons of the world, losing touch with the everyman he once mocked. His show feels like a cocktail party for the 1%, where joking about billionaires isn't satire, it's networking. When he name-drops Oprah to applause, it's not comedy, it's a flex, and the internet's not here for it. Here's the twist. Colbert's a devout Catholic, a fact that clashes with his progressive cheerleading. The text notes this tension. His faith, scarred by church scandals, sits awkwardly next to his Hollywood halo. On the Colbert Report, his conservative character had a wink of authenticity. Now, as ex-users like our liberal laugh point out, he's a character in search of a soul. Is he the pious Catholic or the coastal elite? The ghost of his old persona flickers, but he's too busy pandering to notice. This identity crisis fuels the roast, with X calling him a man lost between the cross and the clapboard. Rogan's got one thing Colbert's lost: courage. His podcast is a tightrope walk, no scripts, no safety nets, just raw conversation. He'll grill a scientist, joke with a comedian, or spar with a politician, unafraid of being wrong. The text calls it guts, and ex-users like Oshaka Pahona agree, praising his unscripted chaos. Colbert, meanwhile, surrounds himself with comfort pets, guests who nod along, audiences who clap on cue. His interviews are rituals, not conversations. With all the tension of a yoga class for trust fund babies, Rogan risks whiplash, Colbert risks nothing but a bad hair day. Colbert's monologues are scripted to death, written by a team that sounds like they majored in poli-sci and minored in Reddit. The text compares them to a toddler belly flopping on a trampoline, and ex-users like Amazemore call them copy-pasted from trending tweets. Every joke feels like a BuzzFeed listicle, safe and sanitized, designed to comfort rather than provoke. His writers churn out lines that land with the grace of a PowerPoint slide at a corporate retreat. It's not comedy, it's a lecture with a laugh track, and the internet's tired of clapping along. Once, Colbert was a rebel with a mic, tearing apart the system with a grin. He roasted government overreach, clowned hypocrisy, and made power sweat. Now, he's the hall monitor, waving pom-poms for the institutions he once mocked. The text calls it poetic but tragic, and ex-users like Afghan agree, tweeting that he thinks he's edgy while parroting DNC talking points. His transformation is a cautionary tale. What happens when a satirist trades danger for applause? He's not pushing boundaries, he's polishing them, and the internet's roast is the receipt. seat. In the end, Rogan and Kelly are armed with mics and a refusal to flinch. Rogan's chasing truth in his cavelit studio, Kelly's cutting through noise like a blade, while Colbert's clinging to his band, his scripts, and a moral compass that spins with the latest headlines. The text calls him a Huffington Post blog with a laugh track, and ex-users like Scott Bertram echo it, dubbing him a billboard for smug. He's not a satirist, he's a comfort machine for the overeducated, serving applause bait to an audience that claps like it's their job. Rogan and Kelly invite chaos, Colbert curates comfort, the ghost of satire's sobbing, and this roast is one he'll never outrun.